This is one of the best gaming monitors I've ever used. It's the ASUS ROG Swift PG32UCDP and I reviewed it on the channel a few months back. It's a 32-inch 4K 240Hz QD OLED monitor and I've been absolutely loving it and couldn't think of any reason that I would replace it. Until today, that is. Say hello to the latest ROG gaming monitor, the ROG Swift PG32UCDP. This thing has some features so epic that we're going to need one of these to get the best out of it. So today, we're going to take a look and see how this monitor stacks up. Let's get into it. So how do you build on one of the most epic gaming monitors? Well, this one comes packed with some eye-watering specs and crafty features that I am super excited about. Before we get into the details, let's get this monitor unboxed and see what you get inside. First of all, we have the stand, which is made up of two parts and is the same across most of ROG's monitor models, including the UCDP that I recently reviewed. We also have this little plastic attachment for the stand, a VESA adapter in case you want to mount the monitor to a desk arm or wall mount, and one thing I love about these ROG monitors, this nice handy bag containing all of the cables you need, including HDMI, DisplayPort, USB-C, USB-A to USB-B uplink, and the power cable. And then finally, of course, we have the monitor itself. Assembly is simple, you just slot the stand into the base and tighten it with the screw underneath, then this little plastic attachment snaps onto the bottom. Thanks to the way ASUS packaged the monitor, you can easily snap the stand into the slot on the back and you're good to go. In terms of maneuverability, you can adjust the height of the monitor, swivel from side to side, and also the tilt as well. Aesthetically, the PG32UCDP has the same angular design that we've come to expect from ROG monitors. The stand is made from a combination of brushed metal and plastic, and the feet do take up a significant amount of space on the desk, so take that into account if you want to pick up one for yourself. You can also utilize the slot in the middle of the stand for cable management to keep things nice and tidy. And there is a threaded mounting point on the top if you wanted to use accessories like lights or cameras for streaming. The monitor itself has a nice clean design with a super thin panel, thin bezels around the edge, an ROG logo on the bottom, and one of my personal favorite things about these monitors, this really cool RGB ROG logo on the back. In most cases, you probably won't see this, and it's not really bright enough to use as backlighting, but it's still very cool. Finally, on the bottom of the stand, we have this ROG logo that can be projected onto the desk through that plastic attachment we mentioned earlier, and they do include some alternative designs in the box in case you want to switch it out for a different one, which you can easily do by popping out the disc and slotting in one of the others. As I said, ROG also include this VESA mount adapter for use with desk arms and wall mounts like I use in my setup, and this can be slotted easily into the back of the monitor, and then it's just a case of screwing this onto the arm. Although because I'm already using an ROG monitor, I can simply just swap over without even unscrewing the adapter. Personally, I think it looks so much cleaner like this because I prefer the floating look over using the stand. In terms of I/O ports and connectivity, on one side we have one DisplayPort 1.4 and two HDMI 2.1 ports. Then on the other side we have a USB-C port which can be used for power delivery and also as a DisplayPort alternative, three USB 3.2 ports, USB uplink, 3.5mm audio jack for headphones and external speakers, and finally an optical audio out port. Below these we have the controls for the monitor, which consist of two buttons either side of a little joystick, and these can be used to navigate the menus and settings on the monitor as well as powering it on and off. Now, to fully get the best out of this monitor, I'm going to throw this ASUS TUF 4090 into my PC build, and when you take a look at the specs of this monitor, you'll see why. So this is a 32-inch 4K UHD WOLED monitor with a 240Hz refresh rate and 0.03 millisecond response time. And while that sounds like an epic list of specs already, apart from being WOLED, those specs are the same as the UCDP monitor I was using before. But what sets this monitor apart is the brand new dual hertz feature, which means that as well as outputting 4K 240Hz, it can also output 1080p at 480Hz. So if you're playing beautiful scenic games with ultra graphics and value that incredible picture quality and high resolution, you can set it to 4K and enjoy stunning crisp images in gameplay, media, and everything else while still getting a 240Hz refresh rate. But maybe you're an FPS gamer and your main goal is ultra smooth and fluid motion over everything else, so you could switch modes to 1080p and enjoy gaming in 480Hz instead. And all you have to do to switch is open up the menu, then under gaming select frame rate boost and toggle it on. Of course, the monitor also supports 30, 60 and 120Hz as you'd expect, so it can also be used for console gaming too, although it might be a little overkill for that. The UCDP also packs in a ton of other features like high dynamic range, variable refresh rate, OLED anti-flicker, AI assistant and more, so this monitor certainly comes loaded. We'll get onto the gaming performance shortly, but first let's talk about screen quality. So this monitor uses an LG WOLED panel, which is different to the PG32UCDP as that uses a Samsung QD OLED panel. And the biggest difference you'll notice is that the UCDP has this matte finish compared to the glossy finish of the QD OLED UCDP, and this together with being VESA Display HDR True Black 400 certified allows the UCDP to display almost perfect blacks across the panel, giving an unmatched level of contrast which, as you can see, looks absolutely immaculate. In fact, I'm willing to say this is the best contrast I've seen on any monitor I've used, and it's not even close. The trade-off though is that the colors on this monitor are not quite as vibrant as with the UCDP, so bear that in mind if that's something that's important to you. That's not to say that the colors don't still look fantastic on here, with 99% DCI-P3 color gamut coverage, which doesn't require any calibration. It looks great straight out of the box. It's also HDR10 and has a peak brightness of 250 nits in SDR and up to 1300 in HDR, and I found the brightness to be easily more than good enough for playing games in my studio. This monitor also has a feature called MLA Plus, which allows 20% wider viewing angles and 15% brightness increase in HDR. All of that allows for some beautiful imagery, and even though I've always said that I prefer QD OLED for the vibrant colors, this WOLED is certainly giving me something to think about. So as this is a gaming monitor, how does it perform in gaming? Well, it's safe to say it blew me away. Everything about this monitor looks and feels fantastic when playing pretty much any game. I tried both PC and console games on here, and the picture quality is just about as sharp as I've ever seen. The 4K resolution looks immense on here, and with the incredible contrast on the matte panel and colors still really popping, I can't put into words just how good this actually looks in person. The camera certainly does not do it justice. With all of the graphics settings turned up, I was able to enjoy some truly spectacular scenery and unmatched clarity in some of my favorite story games, and it made me want to play through them all again just to enjoy looking at them. And switching on the frame rate boost to game in 1080p 480Hz, gameplay was smoother than anything I've tried before. I was able to pull a max of about 300 FPS in a couple of games with the 4090, but it really blew me away as I usually play in 240Hz, and this was incredible. In both modes, the response time was lightning fast, no motion blur, no issues with screen tearing, just an all-round 10 out of 10 epic experience. As always, ROG have included a bunch of gaming features and enhancements as well. These, along with all the menu features, can be accessed by clicking in the joystick to bring up the menu OSD, and in here you can flick through all of the various settings to customize the image, change inputs, customize RGB, and of course we have the added gaming features. There's Game Plus, which allows you to add an FPS counter, dynamic crosshairs, display alignments, and more. Then Game Visual allows you to choose from various image presets so you can adjust your monitor depending on the game or content you're displaying. And Dynamic Shadow Boost allows you to increase the brightness of darker areas, making it easier to spot collectibles or enemies. As this is 2024 and AI is taking over, you can choose to use AI assistant features instead, like AI Crosshair, which automatically changes to a color that contrasts the background, AI Shadow Boost, which automatically enhances those dark areas, and AI Visual, which detects what's on screen and adjusts the settings for the best look. They've also included a couple of features which set this monitor apart from the rest. Firstly, it has ELMB black frame insertion, which basically displays every second frame as a black frame and essentially boosts the clarity of 120Hz to 240Hz. This feature can only run at 120Hz in both 4K and 1080p, and you cannot use VRR or HDR HDR in this mode, but the clarity looks extremely good. The other feature is OLED anti-flicker, which combats variable refresh rate flicker, and I haven't really had any issues with flickering anyway, but it's great to have that option in cases where it's a problem. Now, with this being a matte finish rather than glossy, how are the reflections and glare? Well, the answer is very good. I tend to prefer the glossy finish in an OLED monitor, but having used this one, I'm actually considering changing my mind. It handles ambient light very well in my studio, which helps get those deeper blacks and contrast, and where there are light sources such as my window or the key lights from my editing setup, of course, you do get some glare, but it's really not that noticeable, especially when you're sat directly in front of the monitor, which is where you would be sat if you were gaming. And when you compare that to the UCDM, you can really see the difference. I'm very impressed, and like I say, I'm beginning to think the matte might be my new preferred look. So what if you want to use this monitor for something other than gaming, such as productivity purposes or watching media? We've already touched on the screen performance in some media, and watching TV shows and movies on this monitor is a great experience. The image clarity looks fantastic, and with great brightness levels, both HDR and SDR content looks beautiful on here. And the same can be said if you're using this monitor for productivity as well. Text clarity has been improving on OLEDs over time, but this is for sure one of the best I've seen. I spent some time scrolling through articles and menus, and I had absolutely no issue with reading any text, and it was actually very easy on the eyes. Definitely a big step forward on some of the older OLED models. As always with OLEDs, we have to talk about the risk of burn-in, which is where static pixels remaining on screen for a long time can cause them to permanently burn into the screen. But honestly, these days OLED monitors are so much more advanced that this is almost never an issue. ASUS always includes a raft of OLED care options in their monitors, offering features like pixel cleaning to recalibrate the monitor after being active for several hours, automatic dimming when the screen has been inactive for a while, screen move which periodically moves the pixels slightly to prevent them burning in, and logo brightness adjustment which detects static logos and reduces their brightness. So then, what are my overall thoughts on this monitor? Well, if I'm honest, this is one of the first times that I've reviewed a monitor, or even any tech for that matter, and I can't actually think of a negative thing to say about it. This monitor is just about as close to perfection as I think I've seen. The specs are one of the best combinations in a gaming monitor, 32 inches, 4K, 240Hz, OLED, it's definitely the sweet spot in my opinion. And the groundbreaking dual Hertz feature is a fantastic addition, allowing you to choose whether to prioritize beautiful resolution or silky smooth high refresh rate. The unrivaled true blacks and contrast levels are enough to potentially convince me to switch from a glossy QD OLED to this matte WOLED instead, especially as the slightly less vibrant colors are barely noticeable. ASUS have packed a ton of extra features in here as well, so many in fact that I haven't had a chance to mention them all, such as the built-in KVM and aspect ratio control. Honestly, I am confident in saying that this is one of, if not the best gaming monitor that I've ever used, and this may very well become my new daily driver. I hope you guys found today's video helpful and entertaining, and if you did, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and let me know in the comments what you thought or if you have any questions. I'm also going to be doing a side-by-side video with the UCDP and UCDM to show the similarities and differences in greater detail very soon, so keep an eye out for that. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.